function, pumping and dumping, manipulate the market, flooded from the darknet, flooded from the deep web, keep it a secret. Every exchange got the nerdy brains trading on the frequent.
Alright, let's see how this goes. Okay, can everyone hear me now? We're going to find out in a moment because I'm looking at on this thing. And again, if you can hear me, apologies for Alright, let's see how this Perfect, alright. Apologies for being late and stuff. It is currently 10:15 a.m. Note the letters A and M. That's the morning. There should be audio now. Yeah, there's audio now. And hackers and the morning don't really go well together. But we're here to watch a special thing now. So because we're already running late as DCG 201 tradition, I'm going to go through the spiel real quick. So hello everyone out there. My name is Sidepocket. That's what people refer to me on the interwebs. I'm one of the two co-founders of DCG 201. DCG 201, also formerly known as DEF CON 201 or DC 201, is a computer hacker collective and group that hangs out in New Jersey, particularly Jersey City, New Jersey, or Jersey City, New Jersey if you don't speak Jerseyans. And we meet the third Friday of every month. And in fact, this upcoming Friday on the 21st, starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, will be our next meeting for the month of May. It's going to be all virtual reality theme. I'll quickly go through that in a bit. You definitely don't want to miss it. It's going to be crazy. We're going to be trying a lot of new things. And if you want to know more about sort of what we do and all of that fun stuff, you can go, as you can see below, we have a list of stuff here, but you can go to our website, which I'm going to post also in chat, which is defcon21.org. And we're also on all the social medias. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on the hostx.social instance, the Mastodon, we have our own .onion, we're all over the place. And so we have a couple of them, the main ones on the website, but if you want kind of a master list of them, I just posted a link tree in chat that has all the stuff in there. So, normally I do a show, which is why the icon is, I don't know where to point. Where do we point? Let's see. It in here. The logo in the corner here, because I'm not a weatherman. I don't know how to do reverse stuff. Anyhow, called Crypto Barons, and that's why G.I. Jack, our other co-founder, lent me once again the blockchain that's going to permanently fuse my neck because this is going to be a long stream. And Crypto Barons is a show that I normally do, even though this month was weird, every second and fourth Saturday of every month, where we look at cryptocurrency and blockchain. I can't speak today. Blockchain technologies as technologies, meaning that sometimes we go into market stuff, which we're about to do in a bit, and we go into community, which we're going to be doing a lot of today. But we mainly like to look at, hey, how does this tech concept work? What is this tech concept? Is there any code in it that we can look at? How is it coded? Are there any main nets or test nets that we can try to connect to and look at? Is there anything we can run ourselves on our end? Actual nuts and bolts of how all this stuff works, as opposed to just snake oil fluff of like, oh, DeFi, NFTs, all sorts of slogans of the future type of bullcrap. And you'll probably notice that it is neither a second nor a fourth Saturday of the month. So why are we streaming? Well, today we're going to be doing a long stream. It's going to be going on to like 5 p.m. I'm going to probably be in and out of camera at certain points because on break and stuff. Where we're going to talk and interact, and you get to see my reactions to a awesome convention that's going on by the Polkadot people, which we covered Polkadot a couple of episodes before. It was a really awesome episode. There was a lot of stuff to cover, very interesting things such as doing parallel chains that they call parachains, the DOT, cryptocurrency that they use, the multiple test nets that they run, etc. Basically, they're trying to combat, they're trying to basically replace Ethereum as like the place you build all of your blockchain tech, including decentralized apps or DApps. And they have an online convention going on right now that we're currently late to because it's my fault, called Polkadot Decoded, and that's what we're going to look at today. So we're going to now float over to probably the screen we're going to be looking at for the most part, which is over here on this separate browser. So as I said before, real quick, we are having a meeting this May. It's May 21st, starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be slowly updating our website, among other things. I'm also going to post that same Medium link in chat. And it's going to be a lot of amazing stuff. Our main keynote is going to be the awesome people at XRSI, which is an entire security group that tries to look at security from VR, AR, and XR platforms. Also note the Incent rewards is a really cool way to earn free crypto while you watch the show. You can go to get.incent, I think, .com or .org.com and scan that QR code or enter that code in. You get a little bit of cryptocurrency incent each time, and then when you get enough of it, you can cash it out in any other cryptocurrency, which means you can also cash it out at fiat currency, although you probably don't want to do that today because we're going to get to that in a moment in terms of cashing stuff out. But we have all sorts of crazy VR talks, and we're actually also going to be broadcasting from a virtual world itself. So just remember, May 21st at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, because we're on the East Coast. You really don't want to miss this one. We also have some really cool announcements. If you want to get updates for those, as we keep saying, you can hit that bell on YouTube to make sure you get the notifications, and like, share, subscribe completely free on our main platforms, Twitch, DLive, or YouTube. Also, hi everyone out there on Facebook. If you are on Facebook and you want to chat, there's a separate web link that you have to do in order to interface with us. So we just posted that in chat. Also, hi everyone who's watching out there on Diode Zone and all the elite hackers who are watching on YouTube through NVIDIA's via Tor. When you follow us on Twitch, DLive, or YouTube, or send us lemons or bits or super chats, we get those notifications during this stream and we cheer you on. And particularly if you're on DLive, which is what we focus on with Crypto Barons. And yes, we will be, if you manage to stick around, I would say to the exact time at 5 p.m., we will be dropping off a ton of lemons. We are about 6 followers away from reaching a status on DLive called Cryptocurrency Superstar, where we get to do a lot more with the DLive account, especially for Crypto Barons. So if you really like Crypto Barons or other shows and you want to help out and you have a DLive account, please follow us on there. It's completely free. That helps us get to that Crypto Superstar goal. If you know someone else who has DLive, tell them to go follow us, all of that. But let's look at the meat and potatoes of what we're kind of doing today. So what we are currently looking at is this conference, which is called, Polkadot Decoded. It goes on for 2 days. Initially, I was going to stream this tomorrow, and depending on how I feel, I might do part of that. But you see, I recently went back to work, and I originally scheduled Polkadot Decoded back when I didn't have any work, which is why I was really on Thursday, and today's my day off. I get a day off on Wednesdays, so that's why we're streaming it today. I might maybe do bits tomorrow. Maybe I'll do a pre-recorded video thing. I'm not sure, but we're going to be watching this today. It's a big kind of tech conference all on the Polkadot blockchain and main network. And there's so many different keynotes and speakers that we're going to be watching in a moment. It's kind of funny because originally when we had more time, I'm just going to briefly go over this. If you woke up this morning and checked your cryptocurrency wallets, I feel sad for you because everything is dying. Look at all of this red. This is the great cryptocurrency crash of 2021. Look at all the. Let's see which ones didn't go. USD Coin is okay. Polygon on the Matic network, which is something that we're actually going to look into. I've had to delay the Matic. Polygon, formerly known as Matic, does masternoding, and I've been wanting to do a masternoding episode forever, but because we had multiple delays, including our last episode where we had to cover Chia Coin because it was the topic of the month, we kept delaying it. So probably the first half of June, so that first Crypto Barons in June, which I believe is going to be on, let's see if I can quickly check the calendar, because we're going to get into Polkadot, don't worry. It should be on June 12th. Oh boy, will finally do the masternoding thing. Every time I try to do Polygon with the masternoding thing, some Elon Musk farts and some big cryptocurrency thing happens that then I have to change the subject. And if that happens that week, I'm going to murder people. So Polygon is okay. DAI, shockingly, is okay. Everything else is dead. Look at this graveyard. It goes all the way down. BTD is down. Bitcoins themselves are down. Filecoin is even down. Binance is down. Stellar. Litecoin. Bitcoin Cash. The almighty Doge finally toppled a lot. And yeah, Ethereum, Tether, even though Tether's kind of a scam, everything's going crazy. Everyone's trying to say to buy now. Again, I'm not the best person in terms of markets. I like looking at technology. I'm going to see in chat. I was watching the cute Thai girl stream. Post the link of that in chat. The bubble finally popped. Yep. Who wants a drink? Yeah, we'll drink to the death of cryptocurrency. No, and I can quickly tell you why this happened, and then we'll go right to the convention. Two things. One, which is what one of my roommates told me. We don't know which exchange it was, but apparently there was an exchange earlier today, late last night, where it was they were trying to do like a promotion thing, and if you invested, basically you got like $400. Like, you know how sometimes when you sign up to like a new bank account, they're like, hey, if you sign up a new bank account, for our bank, you open up a new savings, we'll just deposit $200 in there. Well, that's what apparently they were doing, was when you signed up, you automatically got $400 in, which is probably why it's stable, the USD coin, right? You notice how that is like super priced up? So neat. I'll try to remember that link. So what apparently happened is somebody didn't know how to round, or they didn't know what stonks was, and or didn't know that or basically had a grandma in charge, because apparently instead of giving out $400 worth of USD coin, they apparently gave 400 Bitcoins. Not 400 Satoshis of Bitcoin, 400 Bitcoin. And apparently that's one of the things that destabilized all of this. Which leads into the other thing, which is between that, banks really getting into this, all of the scams out there, and particularly if you want to know about the king of the scams, Elon Musk. I love how people are like, you will never trust it. Tether, I guess, bounced up real quick. We will never trust in Elon Musk again. And it's like, again? Why are you trusting in him in the first place? Like, do you know that there's Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and Stallman and stuff? Do you see how crappy these people are? Like, Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and Soulja Boy with his video game consoles. These are those guys from the 90s and 80s round two. So just stop idolizing people. And that's what I find really ironic, which is why I particularly don't care too much about the finance side for cryptocurrency, even though I know things about it and have cryptocurrency myself and invested bits in here just to see, I'm just curious, is because if you look at the original Satoshi paper, yep, rich people are rich for a damn reason. Yeah, you have to have money to make money. That I find it just absolutely amazing how in the original Satoshi paper, and also just note the concept of Satoshi, supposedly, we have no idea what this person is. This person wanted to be anonymous, like, could be a CIA agent, could be a pot-smoking Elon Musk, could be just, like, Aaron Swartz's ghost. Nobody knows. But that's the whole thing. Like, think of that concept. Just an anonymous person wrote up a thing anonymously, dropped it off anonymously, ran. And in the paper, the whole idea was that this whole thing was supposed to be truly decentralized, so that way the people who have the cryptocurrency and invest and spend the cryptocurrency, aka the market itself, would decide its own market. But the thing is, it's similar to when we try to do social justice with technology. You can't solve racism with an app. I mean, you can make apps that help, like Mr. Checkpoint's amazing. You can't solve police brutality with an app. You can't solve the United States budget and poverty rages with an app. Or a flying car, or a freaking modem or something. You actually have to change the subject itself. And so what I think most people fooled themselves in was thinking that just by the virtue of cryptocurrency existing, that this will somehow destabilize the fiat market, and would also like just by its own virtue be better than those markets. But the thing is, finance is still finance. So what happened was, which I could have easily predicted, is that all of the terrible snake oil people at Bank of America and stuff are now in crypto. It's literally the point that unless you want to be anonymous and use Monero or something, that if you want to pay for something online, just use freaking fiat money, because there's no point. Look at it, Bitcoin. Anything Elon Musk says or does will now affect Bitcoin until the end of time. So we went from Satoshi decentralized, like no one actually controls this, Liberté, Thomas Paine icons, to Elon Musk being like, I have asparagus, Bitcoin, 8 billion points. We just lost the point here. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna. I mean, I'll make fun of you if you're an Elon Musk fan, because I love making fun of people. But I'm not gonna shit on anyone who like actually likes Elon Musk per se, even though I will. But it's more of just like, regardless of if Elon Musk could be like a perfect, awesome person, but just the fact that a decentralized concept now relies on centralized people. This is why we can't have nice things. And as he wrote, which I think is great, is the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So after that rambling, and we'll occasionally check back in to see if any of this stuff bounces, let's actually go to the Polkadot conference. Also, Polkadot's doing this crazy contest that's called Gotta Find Them All. We'll check on this on breaks when I'm not eating. And I don't know if this will allow me to zoom. There we go. Where like you can get like you can like win crap during this conference. They have a Ledger Nano X, various NFT and swags and stuff, and you have to like compete all of these tasks. So when we're on break, and there'll be a couple of breaks throughout this because we're going to be streaming to 5, we're going to be trying to win all this stuff here, which should be neat. Let's see, attend Polkadot, give complete, gotta find them all, retweet. Yeah, we'll do a couple of these in a moment. Let's see, I think we could do the attend thing. Okay. So while we do the attend, what I'm going to do is just for, even though you can easily just recon and look this stuff up, I'm going to, boop, turn that off. Watch, everyone's going to be listening on the keyboard to try to figure out what I'm typing. And again, if you really like the content that you see so far, you can hit that bell on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe on Twitch, DLive, or YouTube. We get notifications for those. Let's see. Oh, this is weird. Okay. So, if you haven't seen here, it's like you have to register and attend. The thing is, so I can't get the I don't think I could get the big 31 because in their infinite wisdom here, although I have a workaround. Oh, this will be funny. I'm going to use a different email. I'm going to use my same email, but the alternative. And like, what do you call it? I'm, basically the problem here we go. DEF CON group co-founder. Apparently if you're already registered, you can't do this. So I'm basically registering again. And we're gonna get the big 30 through that. So that just happened. So I'm actually gonna check on that right now. So if you give me one more minute, and I swear to God, there's an actual convention we're going to. Also to note, if you're wondering why I'm looking off to the left on the side, right? That is because I have the convention up on the TV. So I'm gonna have myself muted, and occasionally I'll check my phone for social media stuff as well as work on some things here, and so I'm like what you don't see on here is that I'm looking at the TV off to the side, and I don't know if this ended up in my spam filter. Let's find out here. So let's see, continue. All right, so we've entered that in. All right, awesome. Okay, so now I can put the browser back on. We can actually attend the conference here. And let's check this out. So Let's see. I think we missed the welcome note. Let's see. What are we in on? So I think right where. Oh, we're doing the one that I actually wanted to see here, which is capturing behind the code. So unfortunately, we missed the first two things because I'm a moron. But let's jump in here and see, because it's all going to be one track just for today. It's going to be a while here, so let's hop in. And again, if this camera goes off, I might be like running out and getting some lunch or whatever. I'll let everyone know when I do that. But let's go and attend these actual conference here. So we have some stages. I also like that they're using trying to remember what this platform's called, Hop In, which the awesome folks at Diana Initiative used last year for their online conference, and it was really good. So here we go, capturing behind the code. Let's go and see what the Polkadot people have to say. I know, we also use coding books and stuff to prop up our laptops so that the heat ventilation, particularly on HP laptops, don't suicide themselves.
So if you're new to Polkadot, you've probably heard this word thrown around in a few different places. Like, this is really the core technology of Polkadot. Polkadot is all about parachains and progressing those parachains so we can have all of those different chains moving together. A little bit about myself. My name is Rob, full name Robert. Most people call me Rob. I'm one of the founders of Polkadot, and I've had the honor of leading the parachains core development process over the last several years to actually implement that code and work really closely with some of the researchers, that you saw in the video prior. I've split this talk into a number of sections to sort of talk about different aspects of parachains. So the first aspect is just this disruptive aspect. What is it that we're really setting out to accomplish? And on a very high level, it comes from this fact that our world and the systems that make up our world are ever more complicated. There's a lot of interplay and chaos, and the systems can't keep up with either the amount of people or the amount of data, the amount of traffic, the amount of nuance. And we're spending a lot of time lost in details and regulation and oversight and just bogged down in paperwork. So that's kind of the motivation of crypto and of Polkadot and what we're doing here.
Just hit three buzzwords, including
our ultimate goal is to allow people to transact more fairly and expressively, as in give people access to opt into rules, to rule sets, and collaborate with each other. And to focus on what is truly important to them, instead of spending time navigating complex bureaucracies and systems, that they can focus on doing meaningful work or bringing people together or doing what is really important to them. That's a very personal question, but I'm sure we all have the experience of spending far too much time on things that are not important. And really, I think one of the draws of crypto is that it's going to allow people to eliminate a lot of inefficiencies in organization and collaboration. So parachains are the realization of this last decade of blockchain development, technologically and philosophically. They're something new. It's something that's been sort of talked about and on paper for a long time, but paper is not reality. Reality is what code is out there that is executing. And that's really what we've set out to do, was not just solve something and write a mathematical style proof of it can exist, but really to go out and build it. So parachains, as they're in the launch process now, are this realization of that entire process. And what you can do with them very broadly is to disrupt the ways that we interact with the internet so far. So changing the way that we're going to transact, build, organize, and govern. So having new means of exchange, payment, finance, savings, ownership. As we've seen already over the past year, that has changed substantially. But furthermore, we're going to have different types of entrepreneurs and business models, ways of funding people and teams and interacting with other builders. There are going to be new interfaces, economic primitives, libraries, and cryptography, just things that were not possible without having this decentralized source of truth and trust. We're going to allow humans to be brought together in different ways. So communities, self-organized communities, and also for those communities to govern themselves and have clear binding rules of how they upgrade. And I think Polkadot itself is a fantastic example of a self-governing system, because it has this governance process for updating and bringing in the newest developments to the code as we go. But this is also happening on a much smaller scale. Governance tokens and projects that have their own governance processes. We're going to see this almost on a fractal level, cascading through the smallest projects all the way up to the top of the highest projects. And I think this concept of self-organized blockchain token communities is really interesting because it's very, very internet native. You're going to have people from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds and sources, wherever they come from, organizing around some common goal or principles. And the diagram here kind of shows that by having different sort of shapes made up of people that are coming out of that are distributed globally and organizing around.
Shapes are people too.
Parachains are disrupting all existing blockchain technology. To get a little bit more specific, I'm talking about both existing layer ones and smart contracts. So we've got these three key metrics of sovereignty, inherited security, and specialization. So sovereignty is like how control of its own destiny an object is. And smart contracts are very subject to the system that they occupy. Inherited security is about whether you need to gather your own validator set, whether you, as a developer, when you're building one of these systems, are going to have to worry about providing economic security and making it too big to attack. And specialization is about the ability to suit the solution to a specific problem domain. The more specialized you can get for a problem domain, the more efficient your solution is, the more scalable, the more people can transact using it. And we've designed parachains to try and tick all of those three boxes, where smart contracts and layer ones right now don't really. So we're going to have to look a little bit closer at the architecture of Polkadot. The way that it works is you've got a relay chain at the center, and you've got various parachains being secured by that relay chain. And those parachains, you see the way that we display them here is all around the relay chain. And each parachain has its own validators, collators. Some of those parachains are in fact bridges to other networks. And we've also got over in the bottom left corner this notion of parathreads. So those are sort of a different type of parachain that has a different scheduling mechanism. And I'll talk a bit more about that later. So to talk a bit about how parachains are changing smart contracts and disrupting them, the fact is that smart contracting platforms are generally too general for most use cases. You've got very coarse instructions, things like add a number, subtract a number. And if you're trying to build any type of complexity out of that, the inefficiencies basically get displayed as gas fees, right? Because you're charging a fee after every addition, every subtraction, whatever it is, those gas fees pile up, and it becomes less computationally efficient. It's also less economically efficient. Whereas with parachains, you can really specialize to that use case. You could have a single transaction that just says, store this file. You could have a single transaction that says, pay my rent. Stuff like that that really is more self-contained than a million different small instructions. And I think one other key difference between parachains and smart contracts is that parachains are proactive, not simply reactive. The way that smart contract frameworks work is that they respond to events that are submitted as transactions to the blockchain. But you can't write a smart contract that says, wake me up in a year, wake me up in a month to perform this work, or I want to do this piece of work every block. And when you're writing a parachain as a developer, you actually have that control to schedule logic to execute at particular times or block heights. Parachains are disrupting layer 1 blockchains primarily due to the fact that it's got a heightened level of ease of communication. So layer 1 blockchains are not very efficient to bridge to each other. You can bridge them, but ultimately you have two consensus systems with two validator sets, and creating this bridge and proving to one chain that the other chain has, say, finalized a block or accepted some transaction is a pretty bulky proposition. It usually involves lag and latency. So the interesting thing about parachains is that since all parachains are secured by the same consensus process, messages can pass between parachains pretty much instantaneously, within a block or two, which in the blockchain world is very, very fast. The other factor is that when you're building a parachain, by virtue of that parachain being part of the consensus system of Polkadot, you don't have to gather your own validator or miner set to participate securely. You don't have to worry about gathering billions of dollars of security so that your chain isn't bought up or attacked or 51% attacked in some way. And I think that's a real win for smaller teams that might have a really innovative idea but might not quite be able to get there in terms of the economic security. Let's talk a bit about parachains as a technology. So what really are these things? What do they do?
Finally!
Parachains ultimately are the execution core of Polkadot. Pretty much any type of transaction, except for simple transactions that are very crucial to the root of Polkadot, things like balances and staking and governance, everything except for those is going to happen on a parachain. So all of the smart contracts, all of the file storage, all of the oracle's logic, that's going to happen on parachains. This is where the work is going to happen within the decentralized system. So what are they? Well, the relay chain sort of maintains this set of parachains, and the validators of the relay chain provide consensus for all of the parachains so that they can advance in lockstep. What we're essentially doing is we're taking all of the validators of the relay chain and sort of shuffling them or randomly assigning them to check different parachains at different times. Then they
I still prefer dubstep over lockstep.
to each other, and you can write a bunch of math to show the security properties of the system, which is in fact that it's very secure. Some parachains are going to implement bridges to and from other layer 1 blockchains. So that abstraction of a bridge between, say, something like Polkadot and Bitcoin, Polkadot and Ethereum, Polkadot and Monero, whatever it may be, is going to be encapsulated with the parachain primitive. So you would just register a parachain that happens to be a bridge, rather than having to hard code a bridge into the root level of Polkadot. So what we're talking about here with splitting up the validators across all the parachains is what you might have heard of as blockchain sharding before. But the key difference is that it's a heterogeneous set of chains. It's not a homogeneous set of chains. These chains all do different things. They have different state transition functions.
Screw heteronormity.
Sharding, where all the chains do exactly the same thing. Parathreads are a slightly different version of parachains, because when you're acquiring a parachain slot, you're acquiring it for months or years, and you're competing with the entire global parachain community to acquire that slot in auction. And that's worth it if your chain does significant or very time-sensitive work, but for many, maybe the long tail of projects, that's going to be prohibitively expensive. Many use cases will only need to author blocks periodically. Like, what about a blockchain that only needs to author a block once every hour or a few times a day, like whenever some specific event happens? These sort of sporadic blockchains is something that I think could be very useful, but hasn't really been possible before. So the idea of a parathread is a pay-as-you-go parachain. You've got sort of a fixed number of slots that are just reserved for parathreads. You say, okay, this is the pool of 5 slots for parathreads, and then you might have 500 or 5,000 chains that just compete to author a block at every point in time on those slots. So instead of a parachain which holds 1 slot and it's reserved for the parachain, you have parathreads that compete for the slots on a block-by-block basis. So parachains are tools too. And we have different kinds of parachains, right? So rough categorization, we're going to have parachains with tokens that are going to introduce their own native token and pay block authors or introduce some type of new incentivization mechanism. You're going to have parachains that don't have any native token. They're going to be tokenless blockchains that only use the higher level token, which is going to be like your DOT or your Kusama. Those are going to be common good chains, right? Basically extending the capability of the native token of the network, right, to let it be used for new types of actions. You're going to have chains that are specialized to a specific purpose. You're going to have chains that are really good at something like file storage, or really good at something like oracles, or maybe offloading computation, like whatever it may be, identity, zero-knowledge proof systems. And you might have chains that really only do one thing, right? Like they don't even have account systems. They don't even have like governance. They just have this one module that they do really well. And then you can have applications that leverage all of those chains together to create an application that does a whole bunch of things. Or you might have sort of the opposite side of the spectrum, which is your hub chain, where you have a chain that exists as an amalgamation of functionality designed to best serve a specific community. So instead of being specialized on actual transaction types, you can have parachains which are specialized to serve a particular community really well. And those would be things like DeFi hubs, nominator chains, governance hubs, DAO creation facilities, things like that. So I think that's really interesting to think about those two different spectrums that you can fill, specializing on transaction and specializing on community. A couple of examples would be smart contract parachains. You can just have a parachain which is responsible for allowing people to execute smart contracts. So that would be with the Inc. Smart contracting language developed by Parity, sort of a Rust-like smart contract language, or the classic EVM, Solidity, what you're familiar with from Ethereum or other blockchains. I like to think of smart contract blockchains being specialized in generality, that the whole point is to let people be, write smart contracts. And that gives a lot of flexibility, but obviously it comes with the drawbacks of smart contracts. The cool thing is that it's opt-in. If you want to use a smart contract, you can. If you want to write a parachain that's more efficient, you can do that too. One of the plans that we have is to offload relay chain functionality to parachains. So that would be taking things like staking, governance, and balance transfers actually off of the relay chain. So what you would consider to be the Polkadot or Kusama chain today would actually become a transactionless chain that's responsible for nothing other than parachain consensus. So that would allow the validators of the relay chain to devote their maximum capacity to verifying parachain transactions, as opposed to spending their time on validating relay chain transactions. So wherever you can offload that functionality, it'll create like a really interesting kind of paradigm for blockchain development. And of course, really important are bridges, because I don't think Bitcoin and Ethereum are going anywhere for a while. And we want applications that are built in the Polkadot ecosystem to have access to assets like Bitcoin.
As we saw with the market, that might change after today.
That research is ongoing, being developed, and will be deployed to Polkadot to connect Polkadot to Bitcoin and Ethereum via this parachain mechanism. Parachains are also organizations. So it might be strange to think of them that way, but really, at least community parachains, which aren't common good, they represent aggregated financial and social capital. Groups of people who have come together to pitch in to help that parachain acquire a slot, and also that they'll be working together on the internet. And that gives them some power in the system that allows them to make things happen. So parachains themselves are actually treated as sort of normal accounts within the Polkadot ecosystem. They're allowed to participate in governance. So they can vote on proposals. They can even submit proposals and referendum. They can sit on the council. You can actually have a council member in Polkadot's governance, which is a parachain. And then the way that that council member is going to make decisions is by having an internal governance process. So we might even see this sort of hierarchy of execution that comes from the parachains mechanism also start to reverberate into a hierarchy of governance, which is going to be really interesting to see.
Did he say reverberate or did he burp?
and have their own treasuries. Polkadot's got a treasury, Parachain X and Y might also have treasuries, and they can allocate those funds however they see fit to best serve their community. You could also think of parachains as digital nation states. You know, they trade, and Polkadot enables them to trade. And different parachains are going to lean into different comparative advantages. That might be community, that might be certain technology that they have. And then this cross-chain message passing feature that Polkadot has will allow them to essentially engage in international trade, but in a digital way. So in the last section of the talk, I'll talk about the software and the development process, because ultimately this is all code. So the last few sections of the talk have been very abstract and thinking about what does this mean, what are we trying to do with it, but this is really what have we built. So first of all, I think it's important to highlight developers. It's not all the developers, not an exhaustive list, but these are some of the really core people who are getting the code done day in, day out. Very important to the project. One of the big things that we've been doing for the Parachains V1 implementation, as we've been calling it, which began in early 2020, was to build something called the Polkadot Parachain Host Implementers Guide. And it's sort of a bridge between research.
That is a long name.
It allows to set the stage for alternative clients and future developers, because it's essentially a spec, but it allows researchers to understand what the code is doing. It allows coders to understand the research at a much lower level that addresses all of the granularities that you encounter when you're really trying to build software. Serves as a reference manual and testing ground for ideas so we can iterate much faster. And this has been a really crucial component. You can find this online. It's like tens of thousands of words, but if you're a developer who's interested in this stuff, I say it's probably the ultimate resource to understand how the Polkadot code base works. To give some numbers about the code, over the last, I'd say, year and a half, we've written about 65,000 lines of code just for Parachain. So that's just Parachain runtime modules, Parachain networking code, and Parachain execution code. And these aren't parachains themselves. This is the code that executes and acquires consensus on parachains. Over 800 pull requests and over 150 different things that we've tagged as features or enhancements as we've been developing. We've split that up into 23 different node-side subsystems. So those are different modules that are responsible for different things like availability or validation or databases and things like that. And 16 runtime modules, which are actually the modules that we deploy on-chain to facilitate parachain consensus and make sure that the blockchain can understand parachains. We've done a lot of testing over the past couple of months with the Rococo network, which we've gotten up to 900 validators and 15 parachains. And I think we could have done more, but we were really just registering community parachains, and we ran out of ones that were actually functioning by the time we reached 15. And that's targeting a 12-second block time. There are future optimizations planned that can target a 6-second block time. In fact, the code on-chain already supports that. The code off-chain will need to be optimized to support that. So just to refresh what has really changed since the last Polkadot Decoded in December, we've launched the new Rococo testnet, gotten up to 900 validators, 15 parachains, and we showed asset transfers and data transfers with XCMP Lite. We completed a sharded security protocol and a runtime code base audit. There are going to be further audits on the other parts of the code. We launched parachains on the West End Perma testnet. So we got a shell and I believe upgraded that to statement-style parachain. We added parachain runtime modules to Kusama, so actually got the parachains code, those 16 runtime modules, onto Kusama, and added code for parachains, crowd loans, and auctions to Kusama as well. So now every Kusama validator node is actually running the parachain validation code. Released version 0.9.2 and added the first parachain to Kusama, which is shell, and will be upgraded to statement. That has gone pretty well, but there are some stability issues, so that we haven't gone forward with the runtime upgrade yet, but those will be resolved soon. What's happening next is, well, ideally auctions, right? Not announcing anything right now, but that is the goal once the parachain is running really smoothly on Kusama. And having some common good parachains, community parachains, finalizing those audits, and then really starting to go through the same process on Polkadot. Like, in my opinion, Kusama has 900 validators and Polkadot has 290 or something like that. So if you can get consensus code to work well on Kusama, it's going to work well on Polkadot as well. So I think that's a key indicator. Of course, there are like more audits and a lot more checking that you want to do because of Polkadot, because Kusama is sort of the chaos and canary network, whereas Polkadot is not. But all that going well, the goal is to begin the rollout onto Polkadot. Our focus on the development side is going to be on optimization and scaling in the meantime. We'd really like to target 50 parachains with 1,000 validators and have that work really smoothly, rock solid, with lots of transactions. But we're also going to be starting to plan out and do those future features of parathreads, off-chain XMP, and off-chain code storage, which are going to be really useful and great performance improvements. And that's it for my talk. So thank you very much for joining, everybody, and I hope you enjoyed.
You're not confused. There's a spike lag on the other screen here, which I'm trying to get rid of. Might have to restart the browser. That's unfortunate, because I have it full screen and it seems like my cursor disappears when I go over to the other screen. Which tells me I will probably not full screen these in the future if it's going to keep behaving like this. So let's see here. Although, in a moment, I am going to probably, whatchamacallit, I'm probably going to kill, I was like working on browser stuff here, and I think that might, oh, there we go. Now it woke up. Okay, so how do you exit? Alright, I'm just going to assume you hit exit to exit. There we go. So I guess they're going to possibly transition to the new talk, I assume. Because if I remember what hop in, they're not supposed to technically come one after another. It's supposed to be you're supposed to do them and then they break. Or it says why they stopped in this chat here. So I think maybe, let's see, no price discussion or price promotion in the chat. I think they're loading up the new one and they're just doing it very ungracefully. So yeah, that was that talk. That was the capturing. Was it? I think that was the capturing behind the code. I'm trying to realize who. I just think I can't think of a more Silicon Valley looking person. Like, I just love that he's in a fancy room. You can tell this guy makes, I think, like a minimum of 8 and 9 figures, right? And I just love that he's like obviously a rich white dude, and that his shirt has like a like one of those pictures of like what the New York subway used to be like in the 1980s, early 90s. You know, it's that whole thing where like it's like you see this in New York all the time in the gentrified areas where like poor people are kind of obsessed about, sorry, rich people are obsessed about like poor things. Hence like Williamsburg, where Williamsburg is just a bunch of like abandoned factories and warehouses. Everything's dirty. So of course all the rich hipsters move in there because they consider it art when they don't know what actual class struggle's like. So I just can't think of a better like representation of like, ooh, probably like wrong display of guy, you know, to talk about this. In my opinion. That's just my opinion. But what he covered, for all of those who are confused watching as we try to figure out, okay, so it's on, so it said it's on break. Next talk will be starting soon, so I'm actually going to back up into the stage area and wait for this to reload. I'm actually going to switch to the face cam real quick. But what he was talking about is something that we actually covered on the parachain, on the Polkadot episode of Crypto Barons. which is about parachains themselves. And we were kind of talking about this in the chat, but think about the parachains is that normally I'll put, for example, with Ethereum, not only do you have the different chain types, which also has different token types, but unless you do some absolute hacker fuckery, none of the chains talk to each other, right? And here comes the new instant reward. So, you know, this is why, for example, you have all these Ethereum coins, and while there's some networks that are vague enough that multiple coins can possibly work on one chain, that's why, for example, you can't take, I can't think of the top of my head, but you know, you'll find like a coin that is based on Ethereum, and if you try to use it on another network, it won't, because they're two completely different chains. What parachains do, which is why I thought it was weird, he was like, oh, the current model for blockchains are too flexible, but it's like their whole point of parachains is how flexible they are. Is that when you create what they call a parachain instead of a blockchain. A parachain is basically a blockchain that at its core, basically all the coins share the same DNA. So while you can program them all differently, all the networks, because it has the same base code DNA and all in each of the blocks, all the blocks on a chain understand what the other blocks on the other chain are. So like if we made, like, God forbid, like a 201 coin on a parachain, and then let's say DCG 212 made their own 212 coin, both of our coins and blockchain networks can talk to each other. And then you can umbrella all those chains on a decentral network, so they can actually, so like each chain, in addition to having its own consensus in a chain, like with like voting and process and stuff, you can have the chains all work together and have their own voting and processes system. So again, think of it like each parachain is like a European country, and then the whole network that is Polkadot is basically like the European Union, where while, like, you know, Italy is a very different place from France, that I almost said the UK, but they ran out, now we're on fire. It's very different from Norway, that's different from Poland, that's different from the Vatican. But all of them share the euro, and all of them share same base trade laws and travel laws. And that's why, even though like France and Italy are two separate countries, you can just travel there and you don't have to have like separate passports and stuff. Same thing with business finance, because they're all communicating on one base thing, which is the euro, hence the European Union and euro banking system. And that's kind of what parachains are, from what I understand, are supposed to be like, where each chain is different, but they can all communicate and work together on the same consensus. Someone wrote, was it Charles Koch who had a picture of a Chinese worker covered in blood? Yes, he did. He did. Him and Milton Friedman is the reason, pretty much, and the last president, are all that trifecta, that Cerebus is the reason why America was the way it was last year. All right, so now there's a new talk, which is parsing parachains. Hopefully this will actually have more code instead of concepts. This is actually one of the reasons why I wanted to stream tomorrow rather than today, because I know today would just be all keynotes, so they'd probably be like a lot of fluff. I know that tomorrow there's actual workshops. So again, I'll figure out by the end of the day and watch our social media. Again, it's at, you know, we have on Twitter like DEFCON21NJ and stuff. But, you know, if you want to know our social media, here's our website. This is also where you can email me. And then here's also the link tree with all the social medias. I will make an announcement if I will stream tomorrow. If I do, it's definitely going to have to be after 1 p.m. because I work. So let's look at parsing parachains. I guess we're going to now do a deep dive into parachains and hope it wasn't as informative yet bourgeoisie as the previous one. Trying to get this window going. There's a bit of lag here. Oh, come on, don't make me reload the browser. There we go. Cross your fingers on this. And again, if you like the content that you see so far, even though we're just watching stuff and reacting to it, you can like, share, subscribe for free on Twitch, D Live, or YouTube, especially on D Live, because we only have 6 more people. Oh, I forgot to do that. We only have 6 more people to go before we can turn into crypto superstars and do a lot more with the D Live. But it's completely free. And if you're on YouTube, when you also subscribe to us, and it's completely free, make sure to hit that bell to turn all the notifications on. That way, when we stream stuff like this, you will get prompts to know that, hey, we're actually streaming right now. So yeah, right now I'm just experiencing a certain person in the military that's called major lag. And yeah, because like the browser I'm working on my end is now like perfectly fine, and everything else is right now. And I just realized there is a mistake that I've done on here, so that's fun. All right, so I think the video is actually going to load now. So pray. Are you going to play? Sure, I can post the D Live link. Give me one moment. It's also in the social media links, but
there was this trick I came up with, which was called two-phase. We call it two-phase inclusion, and it essentially means that the parachain, the relay chain has to know about a block. Some validator has to say the block is valid before we start even working on it. And then after that, we start doing the erasure coding stuff, and then we do the real work on checking it. And the point of this, there's a number of benefits of this, but one of the ones is really that since somebody has some real skin in the game, it limits the amount of times you can try. And this gives us this ability to have something that essentially to attack the thing you would basically we can make arguments that by Gambler's Ruin you're going to screw yourself if you try and attack it, which is not the kind of, while it is not like the sort of cryptographic security that you get, it is a kind of distributed system security, which is perfectly reasonable. And anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so do you want to actually discuss like some of the availability challenges and what some of these attacks actually look like? Because I think it's a bit abstract for somebody who might be new to sharding. That actually, we have 1,000 validators, and when you want to include one of these parachain blocks, you actually have to send out chunks to all of them. So there's some kind of like expense and complexity in network.
okay, hopefully that will help. Let's try. I might have to reload the thing here. It's also neat that he's wearing a CCC shirt.
Parachain block, and which we call a candidate, and we have 3F+1 validators, and so we literally erasure code this thing into 3F+1 pieces such that from any F+1 you can recover. So this means that from anything slightly more than a third you can reconstruct the original block. And these are very the map
design. So Rob, do you want to talk about kind of like we kicked off Rococo mid last year, and do you want to talk about like the start of trying to implement this protocol and some of the challenges you ran into early on?
Yeah, sure. We've been working on, I guess, implementing parachains. I'd say the first draft was something like late 2018, or at least the first code committed to it. But like, I think we really had a first draft, what I was calling the V0 protocol, in mid 2019. And in those first years, we were focused.
Because he's boring, I just want to shout out, thank you, Pony Lover. I don't know if that's, yeah, you on YouTube. Thank you for following us on D Live. I hugely appreciate that, even though the bar is glitching right now.
Complex, so that had a lot of time to develop. But from that period of I guess, mid to late 2019 to early 2020, things were fluctuating a lot, as Jeff mentioned, because the research team was really trying to nail down that protocol for like things like availability, making sure that parachain blocks are still around so that other people can check them, and for like the security, the extra checking. I think it has been like pretty difficult to implement all of that research. Like I think a good rule of thumb when you're building any type of system, but I'm using it here to talk about coding, is like every extra bit of complexity you add to a system adds exponentially to the time it takes to create that system. And I think that applies very much so with code, because once you get a certain amount of code, it's really hard to add more stuff, because it's always going to cascade through and start to break some of the stuff that you added before. So it's really important, I'd say, to have like a good design and a good plan. When we were more like iterating in this prototype phase, we definitely did a lot of back and forth on the research. But what we've done in 2020 was really focus down on that implementer's guide to iterate faster there than in code, because we didn't actually have to produce like tests or something that would be accepted by a code compiler. We could just have like this testing ground where I could have a call with Jeff and Al and read, you know, the papers, the draft of papers that they were producing, and then write a page saying, okay, this is how we're going to write the code, but not actually write it yet. So that would save a couple of weeks, and then I could split that work up among like, you know, many different developers. So I think it's really important when you build a system like this to be to have a really good plan and have a modular system where you can add and isolate specific components of code so that, you know, you can.
Yeah, it seems like everyone else is fine, and this guy is annoying. I have to look him up later.
System, because that's just too much for one mind to handle.
Also a note, I just realized I forgot to post this on Minds and Reddit, which I'll try to do later.
System. So
that was relatively modular.
Yeah, but that's, I guess, the advantage of making it modular, is that it doesn't trickle down too much.
Yeah, there's a lot
Seems
of
like the actual engineer's rolling his eyes.
Complexities in the protocol. I mean, we had to do a lot of triage and sort of what really matters and what doesn't. So there's more stuff we want out of everything here, but we'll, you know, what we have now works and is, you know, you know, when we will, you know, essentially we should be able to get fewer more sort of need fewer validators per parachain as we tweak some other things. But yeah, one of the other things that happens is that the first time you write something, you don't see all of the different the actual layers you want are going to want, and that actually is a really slow process, even for stuff that's really well understood. It takes a while to emerge when somebody starts implementing something. So, you know, it doesn't make sense to rush everything out right at the beginning. It makes sense to sort of like keep the other ideas you want around sort of on the, and you know, play with them in your head, which is even faster than playing with them in English, and then to see how
playing with yourself,
how we can sort of fit in and optimize things later.
Yeah, there's going to be like a lot of like more stuff rolling out. Like we're basically doing something that's gonna work, and like obviously like when you're iterating in your mind or on paper, like you can write a paragraph of text that would take somebody years to execute. So we have like quite a few of those paragraphs lying around to just, you know, get around to and implement and just keep adding those features.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
Continue.
Yeah, so I was going to say that kind of brings us to the state we are now, where we see the shell parachain on Kusama, and we've seen, I think, 15 parachains on Rococo, but we're seeing like 12-second block times. Things are a little bit slow on Kusama, so we're trying to work through that. What does what are the key challenges for parachains in the very short term, as far as like getting these up to like a 6-second block time and trying to onboard more of them to Kusama?
I think it all boils down to networking ultimately. Like, I think it's cool that Kusama has 900 validators.
That is that is much more heterogeneous than a test net would be, because we sort of, it exposes more of the problems. But one of the things that we are going to run into is the fact that validator operators probably weren't. There's no way they could have been prepared for sort of the, as we start to add more and more parachains, there is going to be more computational load, and so we'll just see how that we'll just have to grow with how that impacts things. So
I'm actually going to try something, so hold on to your butts.
Well, that's what Kusama's for, right?
Yeah.
So maybe, if that goes reasonably well on Kusama, then presumably we'll actually start being able to, before it goes on Polkadot, hopefully we'll even be able to write down sort of, here's what you should really have as a Polkadot validator. This is kind of the load we're seeing and stuff like that.
Yeah. So kind of looking at the roadmap over.
It's going to add up.
Sorry, go ahead.
Computation is definitely
Okay,
going to.
hopefully that will finally kill the lag.
Have it set up is like we have. Jeff alluded to this before, but like validators are sort of like supposed to acknowledge a block and put their stake behind it before the others start to look at it, and then you have a bunch of other validators like self-selecting to do checks. And more parachains you have, the more computation you do, although it's supposed to grow slower than the number of parachains, so that's why it's actually scalable, unlike just having more blockchains. But yeah, you're probably gonna have to be executing probably tens of blocks per second as a validator. Yeah, so Jeff alluded to this, the two-phase inclusion. Do you want to kind of dive in a little bit more into that process of how a parachain block actually gets validated and included? Sure, and this is something you can actually see in action on like the Kusama UI. If you go on the parachains page there, you can see that like there's sort of this tick-tock effect of backed included.
Oh no, TikTok, he's brought down the wrath of China.
Backing is sort of an initial sign-off by a group of validators that have been randomly assigned to the parachain. So they'll say like Alice, Bob, and Charlie are assigned to the parachain, and then Alice and Bob take a block for the parachain and say, yep, this is good. And that statement proves to others that like, one, it has been checked, and also if it turns out to be bad, that those two are putting their stake on the line, so it's incentive compatible. And then once that parachain block with those signatures by Alice and Bob gets submitted on chain, it's now Alice and Bob's responsibility to distribute like this data to all of the other validators, so all hundreds of other validators, and give them each sort of like a unique piece that they're supposed to have, and any 1/3 of those pieces can be used to reconstruct the entire data. And what that's about is making sure that like the data necessary to check that a block is valid, so it's like transactions and proofs of like the balances of the accounts in those transactions and things like that, are still around when like people want to go check them later. And that'll be useful. Yeah, so like in this example, Alice and Bob would be the ones who actually connected to the collators of the parachain.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, essentially there's two commitments that are made by Alice and Bob. One is the commitment that they're claiming is correct, and the other commitment is by distributing the data.
I think we finally solved the lag.
Yeah, so kind of looking at like the next year of parachains on Polkadot and Kusama, we have this idea of parathreads, which actually you see in the UI now, because parachains actually need to register as a parathread before they can upgrade to a parachain. But we want to make these a lot more functional. So do you want to talk about kind of like the design and implementation and kind of what's remaining to actually make these feasible in practice?
Yeah, so parathreads are pretty much the same as just parachains. Like the main difference is about how they get scheduled. So like we sort of have the scheduler process, and that says, okay, if you're a parachain, you get scheduled every single block. Right, you're just always scheduled. You have your slot and you're scheduled. The parathreads process is gonna be about changing that scheduler to allow like auctions for like parathread collators to compete with each other for the option to write a block. And that's going to come with some networking changes on the collation side of things. Of like when you're a parathread block author, making sure that the validators know that that you're around and that you have a block ready to submit. So those are the two main challenges that I see, is like that scheduler, the auctions. I guess three main challenges: scheduler, auctions, and the networking changes.
Yeah, there were sort of two design options for parathreads, and we went with this one that has this auction, and the reason is it's more spam resilient for us, but it exposes the parathread to possibly, if for some reason they can't get their block in or something like this, then they could possibly lose resources. So we have to there will have to be a few little, like, there may have to be some economic questions we revisit there in some detail, but the basic design of the auction thing, it's not exactly the simplest thing that we could have done, but it seems like it's the most it's fairly resilient for Polkadot, and assuming that it worked, that we can get the networking up to snuff and make it work, then it gives a good option.
How does some of the
XCMP needs to have been watching the relay chain gossip so that they can know who actually checked the block that sent them a message. So they have to see an incoming message and know who actually sent it, which validators on the relay chain checked the block that sent them on another chain that sent them a message, and then that they can go and contact any of those validators. There won't be a lot of those validators right now. There's about 32. There won't be a lot of them, and in future it might be as low as 16 or something. But because they're selected, because the way in which they're selected, they're random enough that the message should be obtainable. So
there's the tech considerations of, like, how are you going to get the messages? What if those messages are sent a long time? And I think what a lot of Jeff was referring to right now, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but that was about like the off-chain XCMP stuff, as opposed to the on-chain where the messages are, which is what's implemented right now. And then the other aspect for parathreads is probably about, like, fees. So if there's a lot of messages piling up and those have to pay some execution cost to the block author, that creates an incentive for somebody to actually come in and author that block as a parathread. So I think with the appropriate configuration of a parathread's fees to the moment, it's always going to create an economic incentive for that back pressure to be alleviated.
Yeah, so after we add parathreads, we've talked a lot about, like, offloading some of the core functionality from the relay chain into parachains, which enables further scalability and this idea of, like, nested relay chains. Do you want to talk about, like, why that's necessary to take some of this core functionality off the relay chain in order to enable bigger scalability targets?
It's easy. It'll be easier to have multiple. It's less nested relay chains. There may be some dominant one in some sense, but I prefer not to think of it as nested. I prefer to think of it as just relay chain shards. So in some sense, the sharding mechanism for that is actually simpler than what we've done already. But yeah, it changes some things. I don't think we should be pushing ahead too. Well, we should be doing that. I don't think we'll want to do that probably to get above 3,000 validators or something like this. So I'm not sure how quickly that will happen. But I also don't want to tell people that they need to be rushing to implement that. I think we should try and do it well, like do the get as much off of the relay chain as possible, make the relay chain as simple as possible before we do that. Or that would be my preference. I think that's going to be the least work for the devs.
Like right now, the staking and elections modules and sometimes some of the governance stuff can be quite heavy, like impose a lot of load on the relay chain. And
function. Pumping and dumping, manipulate the market. Flooded from the darknet, flooded from the deep web. Keep it a secret. Every exchange got the nerdy brains trading on the frequent.
All right, let's try this. This should be a lot better. Sorry for the chipmunk stuff earlier. Let's find. I'm waiting for the stream to hit back again. Yeah, normally we have all this stuff. We had to restart the stream. I don't know what happened. Yeah, insanity. Again, I'm just waiting for, because we have a delay. I'm waiting for the stream to catch up. Then we should be able to continue on. So let's see if this worked. Let's see. Perfect. Okay. Awesome. Yay. That's what I wanted to see. So, where do I put this thing? Here we go. This should be okay for now. Hi, welcome to everyone to this very special episode of Crypto Barons. Let me just go through the spiel extremely quick. My name's Sidepocket. I'm one of the two co-founders of DEF CON 201. We are a computer hacker, tinkerer collective group, subset of DEF CON groups overall that meet every third Friday of the month in Jersey City, New Jersey. And our meeting's actually going to be, which I'll cover very briefly, this Friday on the 21st. And it's going to be entirely virtual reality themed. I'm super excited about that. And it's a really cool announcements and really cool talks and activities and DJ music, so you don't want to miss that. If you want to know more about all of our stuff, you can go to our website, which is defcon201.org. I'm also going to post that link in chat. We're also all over the difference of the social medias, such as Twitter at defcon201nj and defcon201 pretty much at on Instagram, and the Hostucks instance of Mastodon and stuff like that. So we have those links on our website, but we also have this link tree that has an entire master list of how all of this works. And I'm going to post one last time that if you're watching us on Facebook, there's a particular chat system that you need to do on Facebook in order to talk with us. So if you follow that link, that will get you there. So I'm going to explain what happened and also real quick about us. Crypto Barons is a show that I normally do second and fourth Saturday of the month, where I where I cover cryptocurrency and blockchain. Let's see if I can actually speak technologies as technologies. And while I do occasionally get into markets and especially into like community stuff, what we're kind of always looking for is like, what is this tech? How does it work? An explanation for it. Is there code that we can run? Can we try to modify things? Is there test nets? Is there test nets we can link up to? Are there wallets we can explore? That sort of stuff. I need to hydrate. That's why I can't speak. It's going to be really hot today. It's going to be like 87 degrees. And you're going to slowly see me die because I'm going to stream till 5 p.m. We previously started this at an ungodly hour at 9:30 in the morning. And so this will be a part 2 when I go back and re-edit it. Unfortunately, what happened was, believe it or not, it had nothing to do with the actual block on a chain that our co-founder G.I. Jack has lent me. It had everything to do with that either the computer overheated or we had a network hiccup or something. And it seems like restarting the computer fixed all of that so far. We also see maybe if Hop-In is causing spikes. We're about to find out. But so I apologize for the break thing, but we should be able to stream until like 5 now. Okay? 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time? Good. If you like the content that you see or the content you saw earlier, you can hit that bell on YouTube to make sure you get notifications and follow us on Twitch, DLive, and YouTube. Also, hello everyone out there on Facebook, Diode Zone, and the crazy hackers who are watching this through Tor via Invitus. We get notifications for those same things if you send us lemons and bits. And yes, at 5 p.m., if you're on DLive, you will be sending lemons. And if you're on DLive, please follow us. All the following stuff is for free. You get a prompt for it, and I cheer everyone on. And As you notice, I think it's actually a different number, but it seems like 5 or 3 people away from reaching 100 followers on DLive. That's what that number is above me. Once we get that, we can apply to be a cryptocurrency superstar on DLive, and that allows us not only to do more with the DLive account, but have us do a lot more with Crypto Barons. So you might notice that this is not the second or fourth Saturday of the month. And the reason is because right now there's an awesome conference going on done by the Polkadot people called Polkadot Decoded. And that's why we're streaming to 5. That's why I woke up at an ungodly hour that hackers should never wake up at in order to watch all of this. So that's what we're going to get into now. So let's flip over to the other screen here. And I'm going to be reacting, commenting to this. As I said before, we are having a meeting on May 21st starting at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it's entirely virtual reality theme. We're going to have some amazing speakers. There'll be more details posted tonight and through the next couple of days. We have an amazing pre-show. Our main talk is going to be from the awesome people at XRSI, focusing on actual cybersecurity with virtual reality and augmented reality technologies. And just a bunch of amazing talks, including hanging out. Instead of using SemCall, we're going to be hanging out in a virtual space called Nowhere. So we're going to actually be in VR, and we're going to have an awesome DJ who's DJs in VR named DJ Volp. Really cool stuff. So just make sure to check that out. I'll actually post the link to this blog on there. We're also going to update our website later today with those exact same details. And I really hope to see you this Friday at starting at 5:30 p.m. We're going to go until like about 10 to 11 p.m. That night this Friday. So also the other thing which I want to check up on, let's refresh this. There's a great crypto crash going on. Now I explained it earlier that one of the biggest problems that happen with this is that there's multiple problems with this. One is that even though cryptocurrency was supposed to be by design, it's supposed to be decentralized, and that means the markets owned it. Elon Musk eventually owns it, so every time he farts, breathes, or licks someone's butthole, all of cryptocurrency goes crazy. So that's one problem. The other problem is that apparently, I don't know which exchange did this. I wish I could say the name on air because I honestly don't know, but I read about this news where there was a new exchange that popped up, a new startup exchange, and they were offering, you know how like when you go for a bank and they're like, hey, if you make a savings account with us, a brand new one, we'll automatically put $200 in. Well, that's what they were doing. It's when you signed up for this exchange, you would get $400. And then apparently last night, either they had someone's grandma in charge of it or someone couldn't round numbers or whatever, because instead of giving out $400, they gave out 400 BTCs or 400 Bitcoins. Not 400 Satoshis of Bitcoin, 400 Bitcoin, and apparently that tanked the entire market. So everything is red right now, pretty much. Tether bounced back, Cardano bounced back, everything's red. The mighty Dogecoin has finally fallen. Binance or Binance, or whatever it's called, I think it's Binance. Ethereum's down, Bitcoin's down, Litecoin is down. Polygon seems to be the most stable thing right now, which is funny because I was supposed to do that the first Crypto Barons episode, which I had to move to Saturday earlier this week, but Chia came up, and so we had to cover that. I'm hoping to finally cover Polygon, formerly known as Matic, talking about master nodes next month, which that would be on the 12th. Let's see, Solana has bounced back, Tron's down, I think BAT or Basic Authentic Token is also down. The DAI is also the only one that I've seen that's stable. Just everything is in the absolute shitter right now. So I just find that endlessly amusing. So we're just watching a fun dumpster fire. But instead of watching this dumpster fire for now, let's actually go to the main thing. So this is Polkadot. It's a whole online convention. And I decided to come back from the break. And if we didn't miss too much of it, because we're going to refresh the main stage. Oh, okay. So unfortunately, I believe let's see. Oh no, they're still running the composing next-gen DApps with DeFi Legos on Alka. I have no idea what that means, but we'll probably catch the end of that. And then right after is called Origin Trail. Making supply chains work together. And we're going to be watching this again until 5 at break. We'll do some cool crypto stuff. And we get to watch and comment on this like we were before. And again, I love talking with people in chat, so if you have any questions or comments, especially while I'm watching, I have to disable my mic, except for a couple of quibits, please let me know in chat, because I love talking to chat, but I also love lurkers too. If you're just here to watch me be weird and talk about this stuff, more power to you for that. So yeah, here we go. Let's go to the main stage, and hopefully we won't have any more hiccups. And let's catch the end of composing next gen, composing next gen DApps or decentralized apps or DApps with DeFi Legos on Alka and find out what that gobbledygook actually means. So here we go. I just clicked it, so there might be a little bit of lag, but hopefully this won't spell doom for everybody.
Crypto technologies into your platform for a while. You tried to experiment with, I believe, Ripple, and then experimented a bit with Ethereum. Can you tell maybe a little bit about your experience there, why it didn't work, and then what about Polkadot and Akala really intrigued you and said, like, this is the time that this is actually going to click?
Yeah, absolutely. Early on, because we started Current building on top of Ripple directly, and there wasn't a lot of consumer value in bridging people into the networks in 2015. In 2018, we got very close to releasing an Ethereum-based product, but ultimately, the number of transactions that happen on our platform would overwhelm any sort of meaningful. You wanted to have one-to-one relationships of user actions into something that generates, in the case of what we were building on Ethereum, a data reward concept. It just kind of breaks down because you're trying to get value to customers that are relatively small, like microtransactions, but then you're paying gas costs that far exceed the actual outcome to customers. So it didn't make a ton of sense. But Polkadot to me is the first example of how you should actually scale this type of technology. The focus on composability, interoperability, it makes sense, and also the way that the validation is done allows for the type of scale that we would like to be able to apply through this, so that we can actually truly integrate on a transaction level into these systems.
Yeah, that's great. So Trevor, one more question for you before I have some questions for Betty. Sort of the reverse of what I'm used to hearing. Everyone's like, how do I get access to this product in the US? Can't get this in the US, can't get that. Everyone in the chat's asking, how do I get Current if I'm outside of the US? Is that possible? Is that in the foreseeable future for people who want to access this product? I think people are pretty excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're focused on building a great business here in the US. There's a lot of things that we pay attention to in order to bring products like this. It's a very distinct sort of compliance landscape that we have to follow by. But one of the big benefits of building with Akala is a lot of these yield engines will be open. So we're not planning on locking down access to these features just to.
Also, that's the first incent reward. It's a cool way to get cryptocurrency and eventually get some money.
Provide a really seamless way to integrate, but it wouldn't just necessarily be completely locked. So that's a big part of our focus of moving into more open systems is to expand access even outside of our own consumer base, so that the value that we can create can expand to everyone.
Awesome. Yes, there's some people are asking, does this mean I'll be able to swipe a card to a stablecoin balance? And the short answer is yes. A little bit more, even more exciting and interesting of a product than that. But as Trevor said, more to come in the coming weeks and months. Betty, over to you. A question here, sort of asking about the Ethereum ecosystem, saying Ethereum already has a thriving DeFi ecosystem. What does the Akala and a Polkadot offer that we can't already do on Ethereum?
Sure, that's a great question. We asked that question to ourselves when we first started building on substrate test stack as well. What can we do differently? So I think there are many things that we can do significantly differently. I'm sure, like on a product level, you are seeing on the surface level, there's still stablecoin, there's still exchanges, there's still all of those elements that you're building out. But there's the whole dot staking economy that's untapped, right? Based on this dot staking economy, there's a lot of new opportunity that are underexplored. So I alluded to in my presentation where many of the staking derivatives that can actually unlock many of the opportunities. Like you basically your assets can be in two different places at the same time. You can stake, provide security, but also at the same time, you can use it for DeFi, and potentially, you can spend